to a certain degree, you can argue that people are attracted to someone of great governmental wealth, but there's a balance.
Yeah.
If you are the ugliest, most out of shape, smelliest, dude living in a basement.
All right, I get it.
You can, Ian, you can go out in New York and you can dress up in a historical period according to New York law, and they are forced to give you what you want. You can force a massive multi-billion-dollar corporation to do whatever you want. That doesn't mean you have any good social status.
Yeah, and that's kids in general have no social status.
That's the issue, actually, that people of no social status are going and exploiting the system.
Well, but I would say that if there are laws that are written that tell people they're not allowed to disagree with you, there's social status in that, right? When our legal system privileges groups of people, that boosts their social status. Yeah, 100%.
So if the law says anyone can do whatever they want, there's no social status.
Yeah. But my argument is not that social status. I understand that there has to be a differential. Like some people have to be lower in social status than others for like the legal question to apply. My point is simply that when one group of people are set aside by the law and said they have special privileges, that increases social status.
But I'm talking about how the law does not protect a group of people. It's random. The New York City law says anything you do is protected. It's literally anything. So a homeless person of no social status has control in a system if they choose to. That's not social status. That's just a broken system.
So my initial response to what Ian was saying is that creating these quote unquote transgender protections boosts the social status of people who have that identified label.
What I'm trying to clarify is that's not the case.
You don't think so? You don't think that boosts their social status? The fact that they can go around telling people they have to use their pronouns, or that employers can't discriminate on that basis?
Because anyone can do it for anything, right? So the law doesn't say you have to use someone's she, her, he, and pronouns. It says anyone who says anything has to be respected.
Well, I'm just going to say in New York, if you're a black man and defend anything conservative, then you must be a white supremacist, right? So, I mean, I do think there's something, I don't know whether it's called social status or whatever, but you have all these people that it's like, if you step out of what they're, one of my colleagues referred to some of the, we don't need any more brown faces that aren't brown voices, or black faces that aren't black voices, or things like that. And it's like, whoa, Tim Scott's like, I'm not supposed to talk, and so there is this kind of, I don't know, heresy code. I don't know whether it's status or whatever, but kind of this whole kind of woke culture has got its own heresy code. There is no doctrine of grace over there. You cross the line, you're canceled. And so I think to your point, but that's highly selective in terms of where you would even have status. I mean, some areas is not going to, your status goes even worse and maybe even in peril.
When they say that anyone can dress in a historical period costume, they're not privileging transgender people. They are basically saying anyone can wear and dress and be called whatever they demand, and you must adhere to it. If they said, if someone who is traditionally male appears in non-traditional, or appears as female, presents in female stereotypical clothing, using female names, you cannot discriminate on this basis. That would be outlining just trans people. But New York's law, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It says you can dress in historical period. Like those words actually appear in the law, which means you could dress up like a pirate in New York City and say, I'm pirate gender, and it's protected. Not even asking. And your pirates could be R and matey. And that's not a group of people. Pirates are not protected, but they are now. That's my point.
Yeah.
Pirates are not protected gender in New York City.
Yeah, well,
you are a privileged class.
This is something that Jordan Peterson said in response to Bill C-16, which I thought was a great observation, which is that what a lot of these protection laws do is they enshrine a person's fashion choice as like a legally protected identity.
That's what I'm wondering. Could I go in chainmail or like plate mail?
Yes.
And be like, I identify as a knight from the Middle Ages.
So look, I've brought this up time and time again, where the lawyers told me and I'll get laughed out of the courtroom, but the New York Civil Rights Law, Human Rights Commission says historical period. I have no idea why. That's kind of insane.
It's not gender. If I identify as a knight.
But it literally says it, meaning you can put on a full plate armor and be like, these are my clothes.
We talked about this a while ago, right? Yeah, and that's right. We actually had a lawyer on the show, and they were basically saying that, I think we were joking about wearing a fursuit or something and saying like that, and he said, I mean, legally, yeah, but you'd probably get laughed out of the courtroom.
Well, no, I talked to several human rights lawyers who told me that. So this is 2019 or whatever. I call a bunch of lawyers and I said, what would happen if someone did this? And they said, everyone knows the point of the law. You'd get laughed out of the courtroom. The problem is now, as they've expanded it, there's no way this makes sense when they added the words historical period, because now it's, you can dress up like I mentioned, put on a safari costume and a big white fake beard and call yourself the Colonel, and that's protected. Its historical period is protected.
Yeah, I think at some point, a lot of the countries just like, yeah, we're going to move on. You guys go ahead and do that. And we're not going to go along with it. And that's kind of where this whole effort to counter that, it goes with Bud Light. Like, man, you go do your thing as an adult, whatever you are, but I'm not drinking Bud Light anymore.
We talked about that last night. How do you see like the value and differential between political power and I guess private sector power?
Well, there's obviously some sort of correlation between power and money, right? So I don't think that's new to our culture or any other place around the world. But if you look at influence, at some point, cultural influence really drives the politics. I mean, a lot of times people say in a functioning democracy, you get the government you deserve, you get what you voted for, and people will get frustrated by what we get, and it's hard to believe that you could have Marjorie Taylor Greene win 80% of the vote in her district, and AOC win 80% of the vote in her district, and people love them both, but they're so very different. And I think that gets to like our Constitution actually is designed to have that kind of flexibility, but somehow in the era that we're in, there's this idea that everything has to be federalized. And I think that's the problem. It's like, yeah, you can actually do your thing in New York and do it your way. Ohio, we're not going to do that probably. And if you really want to, you could maybe do it in a certain area, but we're not going to change our laws like New York did. And Texas may do it totally different. But if you want to make it all one big federal policy and just cram it down your throat, that's the tension. People are trying to seize power in Washington and impose their will on everyone else.
Yeah, I think one massive problem with the direction the United States has gone, and really over the past 100 years, is to create an analogy. We've gone from a neighborhood to an apartment building. So when you're in a neighborhood, everyone has their own house, they have their own lawn, they can make decisions about their house, they can add something onto it, subtract something from it, have a garden, not have a garden, own chickens, whatever it is, right? And you're all houses, you're all in the neighborhood, you all have the same zip code, but you're able to make decisions about your own property. There's some sovereignty. There might be an HOA that puts some limitations on it, but overall, you can make your own choice for your own property. Now it's like the United States has become a condominium, and each state is its own little condo, and you're able to make decisions, and it's technically your own property as a state or as the governor of a state or as the people of a state, but you're not fully sovereign because there's a certain pattern you have to follow so that you don't move outside of the status quo of what is like architecturally sound for that building.